Welcome to this introductory session on MS Word for editors. MS Word is probably the most used writing platform, be it academic writing or any other writing. Okay. The other platform on which much of writing happening, especially in the academic publishing that involves complex mathematical formulae and other things, is tech, but it is a sophisticated platform, more of a pagination platform, pagination engine that is used by a very small uh, group of people. On the other hand, the use of Word is widespread, starting from writing a resume for a person who came out of college looking for a job to researchers who write their work, wanted to publish. Word is a go-to platform. What makes Word so appealing? Why Civic? Why Civic stands for what you see is what you get. In the print layout in Word, whatever you see on the screen is what you are going to get in the printout. That's where the name Why Civic came from. So this means it is user friendly. It is easy to design a final output the way you want it to be without relying on any other software, any other compiler to see the final output. So what are we going to cover in this introductory module? We are going to cover four important aspects. One is setting up Word, the general setup for Word, as well as setting up Word for individual projects. The second one is how Word can act as an editing assistant, helping us improve the quality and make editing faster. Third one is how Word can be used to communicate with reviewers and authors in the Word environment itself without going outside of it. And finally, how Word can play the role of a paginator like a tech engine. Probably their outputs almost always are comparable, but Word can serve most of our requirements well. Let's consider Word as a typesetter first, because this introductory module and the later modules are going to talk more about the importance of Word, or how different features of Word can help in editing. So we'll quickly touch upon various other things and see how these will help us in our editing process. The first point that I would like to talk about is how styles and alignment can happen. Let's take a Word document to understand this better. On the ribbon, you will find the style menu, and the default style menus that you can see here are normal, no spacing, heading 1, heading 2, title, and so on. You can just click the arrow button to see more styles here. You can create your own styles, clear formatting, apply styles, and so on, and other things. So what do these styles do? These styles identify the function of every paragraph at a larger level. Of course, styles can be applied at a character level, but the majority of times styles are applied at a paragraph level. Like for example, in a document, you can identify something as a title, something as a heading 1, heading 2, normal paragraphs, paragraphs with intent, paragraphs without intent, and so on and so forth. You can align the text in a page as left aligned, center aligned, right aligned, or even justified alignment and other things. The second one is the generation of table of contents, bibliography, and index from various elements that are available in the body matter. We have already seen that we apply styles to identify different levels of heading. From this identification, we can generate table of contents with the number of levels that is required for us. We can have level 1 table of contents containing only heading 1, or level 2, level 3. The depth is dependent on our choice. We move on to header and footer. For example, you are working on a book that involves so many chapters written by so many different authors. You want to identify the name of the author. If you want to identify the corresponding author name in each chapter, you can change the header to reflect this. You can have the name of the book, or name of the chapter, or the author name, or any other information that you want to appear on the header. The footer is usually reserved for page numbers, but again, it is not a strict rule. And we have page building. When I say page building, what are the various other elements that are involved in page building? First is the identification of margins. What is the normal one is 1 inch on all the 4 sides, and you can see that there are other predefined margins also. You can define your own custom margin. The second one is orientation. Most of the times we take portrait as the default. Portrait is the default. Sometimes you may want to go for a landscape, for a for a larger table, or for a different picture. You may want to go for a landscape. You can choose whichever is more appropriate to your requirement. And then comes the size. It could be a letter, a legal document, a statement, A4 sized or A5 sized, or envelopes. You A lot of predefined sizes are available. Then we have columns. The by default it is a one column work. We can have two column, three column, and multiple columns. You can define all these things, and where to give breaks, where to give line numbers, whether hyphenation is needed. For example, during during typesetting, when words are broken on the right edge, there are certain rules, there are certain conventions that define how words should be broken. Okay, so Word can take care of most of these basic requirements. Next is indentation of paragraphs, spacing before and after paragraphs, and so on and so forth. So all of these things go under the heading called page building. Floats are, as the name represents, elements that can float, which means a table can go anywhere near the citation, but certainly it doesn't go to the next page. Most of the times it doesn't go to the next page. And there are a lot of conventions defined by the style manuals like CMS, AP, or AMA to define the position of floats, tables and images. And there are other embellishments like formatting text, colors, italics, emphasize, quotes, display list, and so on and so forth. All of these elements will help you create a book or a chapter or any other document for that matter, as you required, as you wanted to. The next is setting up the document. Under setting up the document, the first one is username. You can use different usernames for the same document, which means more than one person can work on a document with their own unique identities. I may start with the name Murugaraj. Probably later somebody can review that, use a reviewer as a name. The next one is backup and version control. How and where your documents are going to be stored, and where the backups are going to be available, whether they can be made available for collaborators on the cloud, and all these things will come under backup and version control. For an editor, the most important thing is language and style. We are going to talk a lot about language and style at a later point of time. The next one is review and collaborate. A document can be, more than one person can work on a document, and there may be an author, an editor. The author may want to see the changes made by the editor, approve them or reject them, or sometimes the editor may want to highlight certain discrepancies to the author, or he or she may want to ask certain queries in order to rewrite based on the context. So everything can be done within Word environment. Application of styles, we have seen in our earlier discussion also, is going to be an important part in setting up the document. It may not be a necessary step to style a document, but we are going to see later that styling a document is going to help us in our editing process, so that there is improved quality and quicker turnaround time. The next one is an editor's understanding of layouts. You can these layouts have their own objectives and purposes. For example, the print layout is there to see how a final print output will look like. On the other hand, a normal layout will be useful for an editor, maximizing the screen space, minimizing distractions. With this introduction to other areas, how Word can help you as your editing assistant. We have already seen that styles can be extensively used to identify different levels of heading, titles, and so on and so forth. So with this information, we can create table of contents. We have already seen that styles can be extensively applied to various paragraph level elements, and as needed, we can apply them to character level also. We may have identified heading level 1, heading level 2, and so on and so forth. With the identified elements, we can create a table of contents. We might identify table captions and figure captions separately, use them to generate list of tables and images. We can help create bibliography. I mean, Word can help create bibliography with information provided by us. In fact, Word has an option to style the bibliography based on some major and standard styles such as CMS, AMA, and APA. And this can be used for us to check consistency. For example, when table of contents consider a book of 250 pages, having around 10 to 12 chapters, having a lot of heading 1 and heading 2 elements. You wanted to check consistency in the casing, probably hyphenation. Wanted to see whether there is no period full point at the end of these headings. And maybe there are other micro level things that you wanted to check. Table of contents is a place where all of them are or can be seen together without any distraction. Imagine flipping through 250 pages to look for heading level 1, 2, and 3, recalling the styles applied for each of these items and correcting them. It is very difficult, but having a table of contents makes it easy. You can identify any discrepancy in the style, go to the corresponding page, make changes, and finally we can generate a table of contents again. We can update the table rather, so that consistency is taken care of. The next most important is language and style. With respect to academic publishing, we can see that most of the work falls under either American English or British English, most, if not all of them. And Word can help, or we can configure Word in such a way that we check for certain usage, grammar, and punctuation styles related to each of these variants. You can go to the settings, and under proofing, you can see under the title, when correcting spelling and grammar word, writing style, the default option is grammar. You can also choose grammar and refinements and go to settings to see what are the various grammar and refinement aspects we can check using spell checker. Okay, you can check for a lot of things, as you can see here. Later we can go to the punctuation and see that we can check for Oxford comma. We can check whether commas and periods go inside or outside of closing punctuation in quotes, or whether you want a single space or two spaces between sentences. Do you want to see if there are cliches, and you wanted to ensure that is gender specific language, contractions, informal language, many things an editor would like to see. So these things can be configured, making the life of an editor easy. Many of these things can be configured so that editing becomes an easy process. Find and replace is probably or debatably one of the most powerful features of Word. Find and replace happens at three levels. The basic find and replace with more options. You can see that there are a lot of formatting and special items, fonts. You can provide information about certain paragraph styles, tabs. You can identify text based on the language and styles, whether it is a H1, H2, or any other character style, to see highlights. And if there are any special characters, you can search for these special characters also. So thus, Word offers a fantastic feature in find and replace at these three levels. Next important thing that you would like to do probably is ensuring that your work is reviewed by the author. So you can compare documents, you can compare two versions of a document, or you can bring together more than two versions. You can collate the changes made by more than two reviewers, and you can communicate within the Word environment. For example, you can see that I create a comment, the other person can reply here itself, the conversation can happen at any level, and finally somebody will mark it as resolved, which means in a document with probably around 100 comments, if 30 are already resolved, there is no need for us to go through those resolved comments again. We can only focus on comments that are not resolved yet. If you think Word doesn't offer enough, you can find a lot of help from outside of Word. Grammarly is a very common and famous option to check grammar and some style. Perfect it is more to ensure consistency within a document. If you think these are not enough, there are a lot of macros available, especially by Paul Beverly, offering a lot of macros for you to pick and choose and use in your documents, all of them for free. Microsoft has recently come out with an editor, an intelligent writing assistant as they call. And finally, MSDN and MVPs are the support provided by Microsoft itself. MSDN is Microsoft Developer Network, if I remember correctly, and offers a lot of how-tos and others for anybody who wanted to understand Microsoft products in general, Word, more specific to our case, to understand them and use them effectively. MVPs are most valued professionals, people who are recognized by Microsoft as experts in particular products of Microsoft, and and who contribute a lot to the community through their expertise, sharing their knowledge, providing help and support and macros that are not part of MS Word out of the box. So with this quick introduction, we are moving on to more in-depth sessions later. Many of these features that especially focusing on the features that will help editors improve their quality and edit faster are going to be covered. I hope you found this introductory session useful and looking forward to seeing you all in later more in-depth sessions. Thank you.